here we go. This is the one I've been teasing for a little while. This is the one I've been kind of building up. I've went into a little bit of detail about, but mainly this is the first time it will be heard about. Ladies and gentlemen, my video on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Before we get into talking about the Maple Leafs, there is one quick note I want to hand out. So, remember how I explained that not only because of everything that's happening this upcoming week, but also things that are happening outside of my YouTube life, there's a lot of chaos happening. Well, plans have now once again changed. This will possibly affect the free agency video. I will have to be a lot more concise with it. So, my plan is simple. I'm going to lead up until Thursday, and I'm going to be posting a video that night most likely if there's trades, Now when we're talking about the free agency recap, you're either going to get the video for that on the Friday, that evening, and I'll be recording that in the afternoon, or that video will come to you on Monday. So one of those 2 days, and I'm leaning more towards Monday because, I'd be able to let everything happen, and then we'd be able to transition into talking about everything. But I don't know yet. I will give you guys more information as I figure out. I also may now make a video after the entire first round of the draft. I feel like that's just going to be better. And then that way, if nothing happens in the 2nd through 7th round of the draft, we don't have to make a giant video over that. We can just stay kind of calm. That can be a bit of my break day. So, let's talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, I have a lot of different opinions on the Toronto Maple Leafs. For me, they are one of the most interesting teams in the league. Now, from the title of this video, you know what direction this is going in. You know where I'm about to take this video. I believe the Toronto Maple Leafs have failed. And if they have not failed in what they were trying to do, then they are really close to it. In my opinion, this team is starting to turn into the Philadelphia 76ers of the NHL. They get all this high-end talent. They go out there, they promote it, they develop it, they're patient with it, and what ends up happening is that it doesn't give them the results they wanted. What it leads to is a rowdy media starting to get really annoyed at the amount of time it's taking for them to do anything of significance. What you get is everybody demanding change, that change taking place, but it not being the change that they want. And honestly, for me, I even look at the timeline of these two teams, and it's eerily similar. Think about it. In leading up to the deadline in 2019, the Leafs bring in Jake Muzzin, an addition that people thought they really needed, and they did need. The 76ers bring in Jimmy Butler, an addition people thought they really needed, and they did need. They end up then suffering heartbreaking losses in the playoffs and going into the postseason and into the offseason, with a lot of questions. And both of them, looking back a year, kind of didn't do well with their plans. And then both of them, once again, disappointed in the playoffs. These two teams are starting to become eerily similar. That's the first thing I need to point out. So, the best way to figure out about this is because I could sit here, and I will get to what I think they should do over the offseason at the end of this video. I kind of want to talk about where they messed this up. Where along this process did this all get messed up? And so I have here, by the way, if you see me looking over, I have some notes here. I don't normally write notes for my videos. I normally just kind of spitball off the top of my head, but today I've written notes. I've written a lot here. I'm probably not going to read it all off, but I have down, I think, 3 mistakes that this team has made since July 1st, 2018. And Toronto fans, you know where I'm going to go with this because I brought up that day. You know where I'm about to bring this. I have 3 mistakes here, and I'm going to kind of break them down very quickly, what exactly they fully meant, if they're a little bit more, complicated than just what they are on the offset. So, here we go. Mistake number 1, signing John Tavares. John Tavares, $11 million for 7 years. Obviously, it was known from the bat that by the end of this contract, this is not going to be a good contract to have to deal with. And at the time, it was looked like it was a good move. In the power of hindsight. Now, I understand what JT brings to the team. He brings tons of goals. He brings a captain to the team. That being said, there are several things I believe that this contract did for this team. Number one, it set a standard. It set a standard of how much everybody would be making. You judge your ability off of JT. And I do believe that when it comes to the big contracts, I believe Matthews was going to make that much no matter what, whether JT was on the team or not. But I'm telling you this right now. If John Tavares is not playing with Mitch Marner, there is no way that Mitch Marner is making almost $11 million right now. Honestly, you look at the fact of how much they played together, how much they kind of relied on each other to help each other out. I believe Mitch Marner, who, by the way, we should just kind of point this out, arguably, think about all the players who have played with Tavares on his wing. Can you think of a better one? I can't. I think Mitch Marner is the best one, and he's young. He'll be playing with him for a while, maybe. We'll see. And what that did, though, was because Marner's stats were so incredible from playing with Tavares, money. He needed money. He needed to be paid. And that Tavares contract set the standard. Well, I'm the reason Tavares is playing up to that contract. He could make the argument. He could also make the argument that, hey, look at my statistics. I'm incredible. And there you go. Mitch Marner signed $11 million. That contract doesn't happen if Tavares isn't there. The second thing is the entirety of the 2019 free agency. Now, I have taken what the thought process at the time was, okay? They made 3 key moves, in my opinion, during that time. First off, trading their first-round pick, top pick protected, I think top 10 protected, along with, I think, a 6th, Marlowe, and like a 6th, 7th, and for a 6th-round pick, something silly like that, where they had to add on those late-round picks. And, yeah, honestly, for that move, I believe it was a mistake. Yeah, I think it was a mistake because now we look, they have the 13th pick. That being said, I think there's more major mess-ups that Dubas could have done. He could have given up a prospect, a top prospect. Power of hindsight states that maybe he should have just lottery protected it. So if they are not a playoff team, then the pick goes to Carolina. But if they do somehow end up in the lottery, then pick goes back to Toronto. But yeah, that now looks like a bad deal in retrospect. Deal number 2 was the Cody Ceci deal. It sucks to lose Connor Brown, but you know what? Yeah, they got rid of Zaitsev, and now Ceci was horrible. Don't get it twisted. But at least you only had to deal with him for 1 year, right? And then the big one, Kadri for Barrie and Kerfoot. You can say there was other pieces. It was mainly that, ooh, boy, was this not a good deal. Was this not a good deal in retrospect? Tyson Barrie played awkwardly for them, and the reason I say awkwardly is because most of the time he looked bad. When he caught his groove with Keith, he was good. When he was played in the right role, he was good. But for the most part, he was not good for the Leafs. He finished out playing on that third pair and was not what they needed. Kerfoot was a good addition. I liked what they did when they put him on the penalty kill during the play-in round. But yeah, and then number 3, it's the Mitch Marner contract that I've talked about. So, pretty much, with these 3 mistakes, that defined what the season was going to be. Those 3 things there. Everybody was looking to see what JT could do. Everybody was looking to see what Mitch Marner could do. Maybe not JT as much, but Marner definitely, especially after that contract. And then everything that happened in the free agency class of 2019. And what you got was arguably, and listen, you can say what you want, but there is no way that team, paying that much money to its forwards, aren't that good enough. They have to do something more than lose in a playoff round. They have to. They have to do better than losing to Columbus to see who goes to the actual playoffs. There were expectations Just like there were expectations in 2019, just like there were expectations in 2018, and even with the most baseless of expectations, for 3 years straight now, this Leafs team has been a letdown. Now, you can make the argument in 2018, hey, you know what? They were the underseed. And you know what? You're right. You're right. This team was horrible defensively. They didn't even have Jake Muzzin at that point. Yeah, that was a complete, okay, you know what? The better team beat us. 2019 was a different story. Because in 2019, when they went up against Boston again, sorry, not the 2013 or 2018, 2019, the third matchup of the decade versus Boston in the first round, that one. They should have had home ice advantage for that. And what happened? Down the stretch, they were horrible because Gardner was out, Muzzin was out for a bit, Dermott was out. They had injuries, but the team just fell apart. The team was exposed for its weaknesses, and it lost home ice advantage. If they don't fall apart and they play consistently from the trade deadline onward, we're talking about a different story. But because of that, they became the underseed. And then they lost. And here's the thing. They didn't lose a nail-biter in 2019 in Game 7. They lost a blowout. Expectations were placed on that team, and they didn't live up to expectations. So, this team has now proven multiple times, and don't even get me started against Columbus. This team's proven they cannot live up to expectations. They cannot perform when they need to. And kind of like the Nashville Predators, but a bit of a different scenario. You've locked your money up in your big names. The only issue is, there's so much money locked up in your big names, is that when your other big names come off the books, what do? Because right now, Morgan Rielly has 2 years left. Freddie has 1. When you lose Freddie, and if you cannot get a replacement for him, you're dead. You're dead, because he's the reason you're here. Same thing with Morgan Rielly. These are 2 cornerstones of the non-offensive lineup, and if they're gone, you're dead in the water. So what do the Leafs do? Because they're in this really sticky... They are in the stickiest situation in the NHL. Because, let's face it, one member of your top 4 is on a no-move clause, the one you want to move the most in Tavares. You've got Marner, Nylander, and Matthews, and if you don't trade them within the next couple of years, no trade clauses kick in for them. So you will not have the option to move them. They are going to be stuck for the rest of those contracts. You're going to have, like I said, Rielly and Anderson coming off the books. This doesn't factor in the fact that Hyman's coming off the books. This doesn't factor in the fact that Mikheyev is up this year. It really depends on what they do with like a guy like Janssen. There is so much that is at stake here. There's so much that's on the line. Like, what do they go full basketball where like they just front load the lineup and then bring in like all 700k players for the rest of the team? Is that what they're gonna do? Because what else do they do? This is going to be ridiculous. I don't know what they do. I really don't. I sat here and I made 2 mock teams. One was a fantasy mock team where they never signed JT, and the other one is what I think they should do this offseason. So we're going to skip the fantasy one. Maybe, you know what, if you want me to revisit that, I can gladly sit here. I'll tell you exactly what I wrote out. But for now, I'm going to talk about what I think, realistically, they need to try and do this offseason. I have 1 trade I think that they should do. Or 2 trades, actually. 2 or 3, depending on how much it takes. I have them moving Andreas Janssen. Andreas Janssen's making $3.4 million. There's a lot of risks behind it. If you can get something back for him, that's good. Now, I'm not good at gauging trade values. I'm just going to throw that out here right now, is that if you're asking me to throw out there and say, oh, I think this player's worth this, I'm not good at that. I'm really not good at that. I'm trying a little bit more nowadays to try and gauge value, but I either overvalue or undervalue players. So I don't know if this is realistic. But the thing I kind of just threw in here, just because I needed to find a filler team, I went based off of rumors. It's rumored the New Jersey Devils are willing to move one of their draft picks to pick up a young forward. You know, Janssen is a young forward. So I just have in here that Janssen gets traded to New Jersey for pick 20. Honestly, just pit that as Andreas Janssen gets traded for something. I also have Hall and Dermott being traded away. That's what I have as my two moves that I think this team should do this offseason. So, going into what they should do, again, trade Janssen, trade Hall, and trade Dermott. Get those three out. I know Dermott is an interesting case, but I do believe that Rasmus Sandin is going to be an NHLer. He has to be a consistent NHLer, sorry. There is a lot of thing about how we might need to get some more depth. All these teams might need that just because, what circumstances the season might be under. That's way too complicating for this. So what I've done is I went with a standard 23-man roster. So this is what I came up with. Okay, so with trading away Janssen, Hall, and Dermott, here's what I think they can roll out next year. Top line, Hyman, Matthews, Nylander. They had that together in that first year of Magic. And really, we haven't seen it a lot since. I think this is the line they should roll out. I just think that it's a good line. I think Nylander's proven he deserves to be on a line like that. So let's put that back together and just see what happens for the Leafs. Second line, I'm going to have Ilya Mikheyev with John Tavares and Mitch Marner. It's simple. Tavares and Marner, they're the big two options on that line. You put them together, they're the offense. Mikheyev is there for defensive purposes. Arguably, I think that when it comes to defensive forwards, you can argue he's the best on the team. Maybe there's a few more guys, but I personally, the guy that stands out to me, and maybe it's just because defense is his game, it's Mikheyev. Third line, I have it as Nick Robertson, who I'm a big fan of. Peterborough Pete fan. I live in Peterborough. I watched Nick Robertson light up teams before. Nick Robertson with Alex Kerfoot, and then I actually have Wayne Simmons there. Rumored Wayne Simmons might come to town. Honestly, if he wants a cheap deal, I think he's worthy of a third line role on this team. So I'm going to give it to him. My fourth line is going to be Engvall, Spezza, and Blank. And because I was not really in the mood to go through and find guys, the only reason I put Simmons in there is because of the rumors that he would be going to Toronto possibly. So I just have a question mark in there. It's whoever. Same thing for the depth forwards. This was written down before the Dennis Mulligan trade. Slide Dennis Mulligan in either as the fourth line right winger or one of the depth forwards. Really, whatever you want. I think Dennis Mulligan could be an underrated piece for the Leafs in a league where you're going to need depth. Even if we're not needing extra depth, even if we just need the two forwards, I think Mulligan should at least be given a chance to be one of the guys, one of the 14 forwards on this team. Defensively, I have Riley and any right-hand defender that's good, like any one of them. I have Muzzin and any right-hand defender that's good, literally anyone. And then I have Sandin and Liljegren, because, yep, I have Liljegren in here. Honestly, for the seventh defenseman, I would put somebody in there that platoons with him, more of that role. Bring in a guy that can play third pair minutes, maybe give Liljegren the time during the regular season, and then assuming they're going to make the playoffs, put, that other guy in for the playoffs, or whatever you want to do. But really, when you're talking about cheap teams, when you're talking about a team that's going to be able to be under the salary cap, I don't even know if this team can. Might be a stretch to say that, but honestly, I think this is what the 2021 Toronto Maple Leafs have to do to get better. I say 2021 because at this point, there's no way we're going to have more hockey in 2020. So, 2021 season is what we're going to name this because it's not going to go to 2022. So, 2021 season, that's what they need to roll out there because we know what the upgrades they need are. They need defensive upgrades. They need to kind of... Oh, by the way, goaltending Anderson Campbell. I feel like that's pretty obvious. They need to upgrade the team's defense. They need to kind of just stabilize the core. That being said, I don't think that this year is a year to talk about. Okay? That being said, the 2021 NHL season, everyone's on the line for the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's all on the line. And don't let that be understated. Like, this season will determine the future of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Because if they do not make it out of the first round of the playoffs, let's say there's a scenario where they don't, again, heads have to roll. I think Kyle Dubas' head does roll. I think his head will roll if this team does not do it. I think a big four piece will roll away. They'll be gone if this team doesn't do it. Changes will happen if this team disappoints again. The expectation for this team, honestly, I look at it on paper. When you look at it on paper, when you look at the organization, this should be a second round team, but it should have been that last season. It should have been that this season. With the players they have on paper, they underperform in the regular season, they underperform in the playoffs. This team can't live up to what they are on paper. Thus, they're the Philadelphia 76ers, because on paper that team should be good, but just doesn't live up to it. So I do believe at the end of the day, trade Janssen, Hall, Dermott, bring in some guys to just kind of fill some depth in, give Riley an actual defensive partner on the right-hand side. And if that doesn't work, maybe there's more serious changes that need to happen. Thank you all for watching this video. I'm sorry I rambled on a little bit, especially during the middle of that. Man, that was a really rambly video, like most of mine. Like I said, we got a layout for how the offseason's going to work. We got draft. Most likely going to make a video after the draft. Going to watch the whole thing, record a quick video after it. I think I'm still going to release a separate video reacting to the Oilers draft pick. Just to get my raw, authentic, during the moment reaction. And then we'll talk about it more after, and I'll talk maybe about my feelings about the pick a little bit more. But yeah, I think that we're going to do that. And then on Tuesday, if there's something we need to talk about, we'll talk about it. Same thing for Wednesday and Thursday. And honestly, if we just have a lot of small pieces of news or things that can wait, I think I want to make a video on Friday morning, right before I have school starting. Just because I have this little 9 through like 9:45 gap I'm going to have. So I can probably fit something in there. And then we'll see in the afternoon what happens. I'm going to have a lot to juggle that day. This week's going to be insane, guys. This might arguably be the craziest week in the NHL in a while. Because normally you have that separation between draft and free agency. Nope, not this year. It's happening in the same calendar week. This is going to be ridiculous. You guys are going to be along for the ride. Thank you all very much. If you guys liked the video, make sure you hit the like button down below. If you want to see more videos like it, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And I will see you all on the next one. If there is a next one, there will be. Don't worry.